Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another episode of Merkaba Chakras podcast. Today, I get the delight to interview Spiritualist Reverend Elaine San Soucie. Now, Elaine's journey into spirituality started when she was in high school, biology and a chemistry teacher, school psychologist, counselor, and special education teacher for almost 3 decades. After retiring from the education profession, she pursued her passion for spirituality. She was ordained a spiritualist minister in 2013, and she was also granted reciprocity by TNSA in 2014. Since then, she has added such skills as hypnosis, mediumship, energy healing, and so much more. So let's jump down the rabbit hole with Elaine. Welcome, Elaine, to Merkaba Chakras.
I thank you, and thank you for being my host on this program.
Yeah, I'm really excited. You and I, we took a course with quantum healing hypnosis technique through the Dolores Cannon method of hypnosis.
Mhm.
And it was just really fun to kind of catch up with your work and learn a little bit more about the type of clients that you get. So we'll talk about that a little bit later for people who are going, wait a minute, I think Elaine is in the Dolores Cannon registry as well as Vaughn. So that will be a fun one when we get to that part. But before we get to all these other unique skills and offerings that you help people to learn their sixth senses through spirituality, can you tell us your journey of how you started in the first place? What brought you into being a spiritualist minister? Tell us your story.
Oh, wow. Now, since I'm old, that would take a long time. But condensing it a bit, first of all, I've always been clear cognizant, which is clear knowing, and I've been downloaded. And I always knew intentions of people and of students. So I understood people, and I understood people at a deep level. I never thought that that was anything different than anybody else. I always got the hard to handle kids. And for me, it wasn't difficult because I got them. I understood them. And my love of life led me to teach biology. And you can't teach biology without knowing chem. And so that went hand in hand. And you can't love life without also, and be claircognizant, without wondering about the psyche and how this is going on. So the school psychology, and then the guidance counseling, and then the special education. So I did quite a few things when I was a teacher. And then when I retired, and I took an early retirement, and then that opened the door for my interest in the spiritual realm. I had taken a class in parapsychology way back in the 80s, had been told by a spiritualist minister, had told I had all kinds of gifts, and I became frightened and ran away for a number of years. But this time I moved back, and I got into it, and
Right.
I was ordained. Go ahead. You have a question.
Yeah, let me ask you. So you said something interesting that you got frightened, and this is very common amongst people who they dabble into spirituality, and when you dabble away from organized religion into spirituality and start getting into metaphysics, your spiritual sixth senses will naturally come in into form. They wouldn't actually activate, and they could amplify as well. The further you work on your inner work and raise your energy and raise your frequency through spirituality work. And so this is very common to scare people, because they have been taught that all of these six senses are works of negative beings, or whatever kind of folklore that they're believing in. So it's almost like they're scared of their own shadow, but they've always had a shadow. They just never looked. They
Right.
never stood in front of the light. So what?
What happened to me was, I had the teacher was a spiritualist minister, but he was more, he had me drawing pentagrams on the floor and making sure I sat in the middle for protection. And rather than focusing on the light, he was focusing on the other. And that's not who I am. I am light-based. I am open to spirit. But I didn't realize that there were options, that was the darker side. And so years later, when I went back, then I studied with another spiritualist minister for a year, every week, few hours, and we were doing tarot, and we were doing all different modalities of healing, and healing with sound and with drums and with frequencies. And that was just the beginning. That was before I even took other classes to get me going into the program, and which finally led to ordination.
Right. And that's really good that you made that distinction, that when you start entering into the metaphysical arts, there are a lot of different modalities, and there's lots of different pathways to go down the rabbit hole, and not everybody's going to jive with one method versus another. That's why there's so many. Like I'm Buddhist, and so in Buddhism, we just add to the canon, and there are so many different ways to do meditation. There are so many different ways to do harmonics. There are a plethora of ways to do energy healing, and everybody has their favorite method. So it's the same exact kind of thing. For you got into kind of like the not so positive modalities that you just really didn't resonate with, and you knew, okay, that wasn't for me, but it didn't stop you. kept going and seeing what else is out there. So you open up a whole new world, that there's even more modalities, and there's more ways and tools in the toolbox for you to explore and enjoy. So what is a spiritualist minister, and why do they have all these different tools?
Spiritualist minister is, spiritualism is a religion, a philosophy, and a science, all three. But really, it is open focused, so that you as a Buddhist could certainly feel comfortable sitting right in front of me when I'm doing a service. And so too, I have people who were born Jewish, and you still can, they're Jewish, doesn't matter, because so that I have people from different modalities and different religious backgrounds. And at Life Path Fellowship, where I do most of my or spiritual stuff, it has depictions of all different religions, because spiritualism basically says each person is responsible for his or her own path, period. Period.
Right.
That means there are no victims. That means that there's nobody who's going to come to, pull you out. That means that each of us is responsible. We believe in a deity. We believe that there is something outside of ourselves. We believe in the evolution of the soul. And the evolution goes beyond this one incarnation. Now, whether or not you choose to believe that it started before, I do. I believe that mine started a long time ago, and I've been working on me for a long time, and I'll need a lot more work too. But that's another thing, that the soul just is just, we have the we have the opportunity to just progress, period. And then the big thing which differentiates spiritualism from a whole bunch of different things is that there is evidence that is given through mediumship, so that the spiritualist minister actually, by means of evidence, proves that life continues beyond death.
Right, right. And so, I mean, these are existential questions that many different traditions, attempt to address. And it actually that's why they call it spiritualist and not religion, because it's very all-encompassing. There's some common basic things, which is you exist, and you likely have existed before and after this incarnation. You're partly infinite, and there is a consciousness that's connected to everybody, and yet outside of you as well. There's a greater being, and that this whole projection, this whole experience is just a reflection of you, and you are choosing your own experience. You're choosing your own adventure, and you're taking parts in, exactly. So, very, very common themes to a lot of Eastern modalities or esoteric topics like Zen, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, all that. Many of those Eastern philosophies, Confucianism, have the same exact basis. So, we're talking the same talk, we just have different labels.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So
and
how is it inclusive of other belief systems without trying to change or convert people?
Because what I talk about is my truth, or how each of us functions in society, about forgiveness, or about being compassionate, or about living without fear, or about being authentic. And those topics really have no difference in any religion. They are universal. And so it doesn't matter to which religion a person says that they belong. I have people who are Catholic who still come, and they sometimes do their assistants, and they bring a reading, and the readings are not just from the Bible. The readings could be from, trying to think, what's her first name? Oliver. She's a poet. Mary? No. Oh, she's a poet on the Cape.
I don't know.
Anyway, she's a beautiful, she has beautiful stuff that she writes. And so sometimes that's the reading. But the whole service is about who we are inside. It has nothing to do about rules. It has nothing to do about dogma. It has everything to do about just becoming more of who we are. Right. Instead of clamping down on who we are, we just, let's explore it.
Right. And you know that you said something that's very, very that I picked out that kind of resonated a little bit with me, is that you said that no dogma. And the one thing that, I mean, for somebody coming from Eastern philosophies, and I grew up in the United States. There's no way you can grow up in the United States without knowing any of the Western
Right.
faith systems. It's pushed in everybody, so everybody knows pretty much. There's no way you
Hmm.
can escape it. But I understand it. I respect it. And so when we're not talking negatively, or trying to go down this religion, that religion, which one's better, pick one. We're not going over that. We're just talking about the commonalities. And so when you take dogma out of many Western faith systems and religions, and you take that portion out of it, it is very similar to many of the other faith systems and belief systems that people all over the world have.
That's why in some of the services, I have people from all over the world who tune in. And it doesn't matter what religion they are a part of, because what is said is universal.
Right, right. Now let me ask you something, Elaine. Some of the things in life, many people would like a minister or a pastor or somebody of that type of figure to facilitate, such as a wedding or a
Mhm,
funeral, these type
mhm,
of life events, maybe a baptism.
mhm.
And one of the things, like, I am a wedding florist on the side. I take some weddings on the weekends, and I've done over 100 weddings so far, and have maintained great relationships with my clients. And I hear all of these wonderful love stories. But some of the things that I have found in the profession um, that is very, very common is many people, especially in the United States, are waiting longer to get married. They're waiting a little bit longer to have children. And they are planning their life together and their careers together, and they're cohabitating before marriage, and it's not
Mhm.
shunned on. And many families are actually asking their children, their adult children, to put themselves first, make the groundwork of making sure that when you do get married, and if you do have children, that you have a good foundation. Don't just rush into it. So they're planning, almost like family planning, their marriage planning and family planning ahead of time. So the
Mhm.
old traditions of get married first, then figure out the rest afterward is not always,
Oh,
yeah, it's not very common. What I found in as a wedding florist, it still happens, and if that's something that people do, and that's part of the love story, it works for them, that's wonderful. But it is not the only type of love story. But one of the things I bring up, why I bring that up to you, is there's a lot of interfaith couples where you have couples of different faiths coming in. It's not a big deal to them. It may be a big deal for some of their family members who are more traditional, or you have couples who one is agnostic or atheist and the other one would like some kind of religious ceremony. But the thing that they all come across is, in many churches, especially in the West, they will not facilitate their wedding. And so a lot of young adults are looking at different options. And a spiritualist minister is one of those options that kind of includes everyone in.
mhm.
So how do you approach that type of topic with couples that are coming to you going, I need a minister for my wedding, or I need a minister for, um, you know, a funeral?
Mhm. Well, first of all, Life Path is not a church. It's a fellowship. It's not a temple. It does not have a term that applies to any other place of worship, which is exclusionary. And so a fellowship is all embracing. And I have done weddings with, I did one wedding where there was one child already and another child on the way. And in what I said to them and brought the other child in with them is that they were also becoming a family, not just a marriage partnership. And you know, it's a beautiful thing when you facilitate the getting together, the commitment of two people. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Sex, it has no issue. Really, it doesn't.
Right.
Oh.
Let me ask you something about that, because I'm asking the questions because this comes up with weddings, engagements, funerals. It may not come up and may not be prevalent, you know, 15, 20, 30 years from now, but it is still active right now. And I ask, you know, when a couple, like when a homosexual or a lesbian couple comes to you, or transgender couple comes to you and goes, Elaine, we would like a spiritualist minister to facilitate our wedding ceremony, but we both come from religious families. They love us, they're going to attend, but how do you approach that topic?
Well, basically, I'm talking to the people who are getting married, and it's the love connection. And it's the two people who are in love. And as far as the commitment is the same. Mm-hmm. And if they have children, it's the same. It's just that they look different because their gender is different. But the love is still there.
Right.
I have a relative who has a family, and again, they're a lesbian couple who married and they have 2 sons.
Right,
and
right.
So what? I mean, yes, I've performed weddings. I've performed funerals. I've performed funerals where there was a big funeral, but the music is different. And at the end, there were all of these flowers. And what the song that was chosen was "This Will Be the Last Time." And it was by Blind Boys of Alabama. And then I was using a crystal bowl at the same time for sound healing, as everybody was coming up to say their last goodbyes
Right.
to the person. You know,
right.
It's different. And then instead of a baptism, it's a naming ceremony.
Ooh.
Because some people are not baptized with water, but they are named. Mm-hmm. And the community is involved with the naming and with participating in saying, yes, we are going to help bring this child up.
That is really, really good, because, you know, a lot of people don't even know that. They think, oh, they like the idea of baptism, or maybe one of the parents comes from a tradition that does baptism and the other one doesn't, but they are open to it. They didn't even know that there's another option. So so if you are not able to have a baptism for different religious reasons, but you want something same, you can have a naming ceremony. Yes. And you and I both know, because we do hypnosis, that the oversoul, the higher self, does not care because it already has a name, it's already loved, it's already infinite, it already was perfect when it was created. It doesn't need a man or a woman to give it value in a building.
Exactly.
So you know,
the naming ceremony can take place anywhere. It can take place on a beach, anywhere.
Right. So it really sounds like it really sounds like it's just the belief that it has to be in a certain building, by a certain person that has some kind of authority in some kind of religion, and then you'll finally get approval. Whereas the overall truth that many people in the East know, and that spiritualist practitioners and followers know, is that none of that really matters at
Right.
all.
It really does.
It just really
I,
matters of how you live your life and who you affect and love and how you do that.
I am, you know, I have the authority to perform a marriage ceremony, okay, legally. And so I've been given that because I'm a minister. But as far as who marries whom, or babies being named, or the ceremony for the honoring of a person who's passed, that ceremony is for those who remain. And by the way,
Right.
usually the person who's passed is there in spirit,
Yeah. Yeah.
comforting and watching, but usually that person is there.
Right, right. Well, that's really beautiful. I mean, I have friends who are trying to adopt, and they have a very hard time adopting it, because of different adoption rules internationally, and it's kind of messy and difficult. And it is some of these I call them old school belief systems, many of them are
Mhm.
religious, that has filtered into preventing wonderful people from adopting children that need a home just because the parents are homosexual or lesbian, or because it's a single mom or a single dad that's looking to adopt, but they're fluent and they can provide a great home and they can provide all the things that the child needs to be raised. There's so many of these old school belief systems that come from these different religions around these polarizing, type of relationships that they seem to deem acceptable, that are preventing children who need a good home from getting a good home, and preventing parents who want to provide a good home to children who need them. So just because of this belief system that is so polarizing. So I really hope that these types of ministries, spiritualist ministries and others, um, help people break those barriers to make it easier for people to live and love one another. Um, Now, let's switch focus a little bit, because I
Yeah,
have another question. And I can go on because I'm a wedding florist, so I can go on and on about, well, how do you work with somebody whose parents are not approving of the relationship because they're interfaith? So actually, can you answer that question first before I go to my next question?
sure. Sometimes they're there, but they're not the primary individuals. The primary people are the two people who are committing to each other and any children who are involved. They're the primaries, and they're the ones I focus on.
Right,
Period.
right, right. So you continue to reinforce and focus on the love. That's it.
Yes,
That's it.
that's what we're there for.
Yeah. So we're not there to appease you or
We're there
you
to
or
celebrate
your
union,
right. Right.
and we're there to celebrate this commitment of this union.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. Okay, so let's switch focus. Can you
Mhm.
tell us about your work in developing people's spiritual sixth senses, such as using energy healing, mediumship, and all of the other different varieties of
Wow.
tools that you use? So, yeah.
Okay. Some of it is meditation, and I also teach mediumship, and I also do sound baths, which is with crystal bowls, with chakras that are calibrated to the chakras. I do a guided meditation every week online, and that's on my personal Facebook page. And that really centers one. And it is when one is centered and when the ego mind just is kind of put to rest a little bit, that one allows, because one must allow and trust that the information that we get is real, and that that which comes is not imagination. Trust is a big deal because you think, oh, well, yeah, right, that couldn't possibly be, except that there's evidence, and the evidence is verified. And so it's not a bunch of hooey over and over and over again. So I coach people on how to deliver a message. I teach people how to open more to spirit and to spirit messages. I coach on how to trust your intuition and become more and more intuitive, because we're all intuitive. It's just that we've suppressed it.
Right, right.
Go ahead, question.
And yes, and let me ask you. So, for somebody coming in to your assistance in working on these different six senses, because again, like I said earlier, when you get into spirituality and metaphysics, your natural six senses that you were born with start reactivating or amplifying it, because it's already there. It's just you just haven't tapped into it. So as you raise your energy frequency and you raise your Merkaba or your mandala, which is what I call it, these extrasensory abilities are going to come in the fold. They don't mean that you're special. They just mean that, hey, you got a new gift. You got a new ability. Everybody has it. Now, regardless of what it is, whether they get energy healing and learn energy healing through your teachings, or they learn mediumship through your teachings, or they learn harmonics and sound frequency healing through Tibetan singing bowls and other tools that you use. What is the purpose of all these different modalities? Is it just a way to help you connect to source and live a more fluid, happier life? Is that the whole point of all that? I mean, what is it
Actually,
for?
Each person is going to be different, and each person will interpret that and answer that differently. To live a more authentic life, not to fear, and in the process, our vibration is raised. But each of us is different. Each of us will, I mean, sometimes I link with another medium, and it's just like two people seeing a crash. And one person gives one interpretation and another person sees it from a different angle. It's the same thing with mediums. And so we see, hear, interpret, because we still have a body. And so there's still a filter, and the filter is still through us. And so it will be different. I hope that explains. Does that answer the question? Kind of?
Yeah, it yeah, it definitely does. And because I get people like, well, why do I want to use this modality? I can use this modality. Well, why about this modality? And you can just go down the rabbit hole. It's like a mall of different modalities, and you don't.
Oh, it is.
It's like the whole mall is wonderful and fascinating. Every single shop is fantastic, but for some people, they may pare it down to go, I really like the singing bowls, and that really helps with getting my nervous anxiety and calm down, so I can meditate better and get more clarity in the things that I'm working to manifest in my career. Or maybe somebody will come to you and they'll work on energy healing because they are attracted to that, and you will help them fine tune their energy healing, and then they'll use that modality to, maybe they are a veterinarian and they will work with animals and they'll infuse a little bit of the energy healing to heal pets in their practice. And so that they could be a more conscious veterinarian, and that's how they like to have this experience and help others that way as well. So a lot of these different modalities are available, but eventually you hone down to the ones that are your favorite, and that's what you use to live a life with more clarity, and more joy and more peace. And it and that sounds like what you're talking about in many of your sermons as well. You're getting to that, and so these are kind of tools. Like, what kind of tool do you need to accomplish X, Y, and Z that you're working on? So let me see what I have.
Exactly. Everyone is a healer. We may not,
Everybody is.
everyone is an energy healer. We may not realize it. Now, I'm a Reiki master teacher, but everyone has, if you want to call it chi, prana, if you want to call it universal energy, which we can just ask to flow through us and out into whatever we direct it. Could be a plant, it could be a pet. But if you have a dog, the dog is on your lap and you put your hand on it and direct energy into the dog, you'll notice the dog kind of goes whoop, because the energy is just, it's beautiful. It just flows into the individual. And so, yeah, we can heal. We can heal ourselves. We can heal. We can be the channels. Notice I said channels for healing others. And the other can
you don't
be
do any of the healing. Source consciousness does the healing.
through us.
You just being the facilitator, but it's not you that does the healing. It's the person themselves that does the healing. It's the consciousness in the person themselves.
Well, also, there are two things: the consciousness in the person, and also the other individual can act as a facilitator for the other individual if that person is not there yet. And so we can be the straw, just a straw. It goes through us and into somebody else.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of really good ways to practice energy healing, and everybody can do it. I always tell people the easiest. I do the quick 10-second method of energy healing, which is really easy and anybody can do. All you do is you put your hand on the pet and you stick your tongue on top of your tip of your tongue, on top. So you do it too on the top, and then you think about your thoughts, and your mind cannot think two things at the same time. So when you turn it around and think about your thoughts, it automatically blanks out the thought, and then you immediately start the image of the healthy pet, and that pet will turn around. And it works almost all the time, unless that pet is on a mission to go to the other side. But if not, if it has some time, then it will turn around. And I've taught that to so many people. They're so amazed. How can we do that? And like, because you're connected to source, everybody is connected to one another, and you have consciousness flowing through you and everyone and the pets, and you can all self-heal. So that's how you could do it. And so all we're doing is telling people what they already have, what they already know. That just, it's a recognition of what they already know. So when they look at your work, they recognize what they already know. So it's just a nice reminder. Now, let me ask you this. You also offer hypnosis as a tool to help people get clarity in their lives, but you offer 3 different variety of hypnosis. You offer the Dr. Brian Weiss modality, and he's written a lot of books in past life, regressions, future lives, and life between lives in the spirit world. I love his books. You've also offer regular hypnosis through the National Guild of Hypnotists. So for like smoking and
Weight
getting rid
loss.
of weight loss, all that kind of stuff. And then you
Mhm,
also offer the Dolores Cannon hypnosis
mhm.
modality, which is QHHT, or quantum healing hypnosis, which is the one that I have chosen to practice as well, which offers the same ability to do all of that, but then also to talk to the oversoul or your higher self and consciousness itself, and anybody else in existence. Pretty much, you can even talk to the ego. I've had conversations with people's ego to understand things. So there's a lot of, so that almost kind of, it's almost like a 3-layer like of
It is.
hypnosis. So if you're just ready for just the no smoking and good eating habits, get
It
the
all
not.
depends what the client wants.
Exactly. If you want past life, you could do the Dr. Weiss or the Dolores Cannon method. But if you want to go all the way to source and have a conversation with source itself,
QHD.
QHHT. So let me ask you, what type of clients do you typically get that come to you, and they go, okay, so you offer 3 different modalities. Which one is the right one for me?
It's up to them to decide. And it's also I mean, you and I both know that QHHT takes between 4 and 6 hours
Yeah,
to
but
really,
right.
and then um,
4 to 6, but you can,
you can do it a little bit less, but
yeah,
sometimes you
but
don't.
4, but definitely 4,
Yeah,
because yeah, I have the clients do the questionnaire and then we go over that. But if you're starting from scratch, like you haven't had the discussion, it could take as much as 6 hours. Yes.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
because it's at least 2 to 3 hours for the interview, and then depending upon the individual and how old the individual is, and what the life has been like, and then there's a couple of hours in hypnosis. So it all depends what they want. Now, the Brian Weiss will go. There are 3. It's interesting because it's 3 different levels. So I can do just a straight, go back to a different life. Okay, ship back to a different life, whatever life is current, connected to this one. With Brian Weiss, you go back in stages, then you go to a different life, and then you go to the in-between lives, and then the in-between life, you talk to whoever, whatever spirits are around, guides, this, that, and they're not necessarily all human either.
Yes. Oh, let me ask you about that really quick, because you're getting
Yeah,
into some fun topics. This is like advanced
yes.
Buddhism for me. So when you go into the in-between, I know the answers to this, but I want to hear it from a spiritualist minister about what you get. So when you do the Dr. Weiss hypnosis and you go into the in-between, and you could even go to the in-between through Dolores Cannon as well, her
Oh yeah,
modality.
I do.
But when you go into the in-between, what kind of figures do you typically will people sometimes see? Obviously, they
It
have a
all
life.
depends. It all depends on their belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're expecting to see angels, generally they're going to see angels.
Right.
If they are expecting angels, guides, then guides. If they are open, I was at the 5-day workshop with Brian Weiss, and I was doing one of the things, and I linked in, and I actually saw what the person was seeing, and I saw a bird in a bird guide.
Mm-hmm.
But very long legs, a beak. Everything was telepathic. It was quite interesting. So it all depends where the individual is spiritually, which will it really connects. It forces what happens after death or between lives. You know. So if they think they're going to see nothing, they may not see much.
Right,
Or
right,
they may need to look further. But
right.
but they do find it's quite interesting. But then the Dolores Cannon goes it's a quantum leap beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that gets into the right side of the brain. That gets into the higher self, the oversoul, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's called the collective, and they say we. Sometimes, and that part of the being knows everything about the individual and all pieces of the individual, that all aspects of the individual that may be on this plane more than just one person at the same time, or different parallel universes, and it gets a little bit
Right, right. Well, right, and that's you bring a very good point about parallel universes. One of my favorite topics in Buddhism is parallel universes and manifesting the greater reality that has the most enjoyable experience for myself. So, and that's like higher level advanced work. But one of the things that's very controversial that I've come across, and I know many people have come across in a lot of different hypnosis modalities, and the Dolores Cannon method is becoming very popular because of a lot of her books and people are reading it. But one of the things that continue to come up is, why do different hypnotists get different results for the near future and the future? Doesn't everybody have the same future?
no. And don't forget, it's like if you go to a different doctor, are you going to get this? Are you always going to get the same results? No. And so, and the person is attracted to the doctor that they need.
Right.
So an individual is attracted also energetically to the hypnotist, the therapist, the spiritual counselor, whoever that they energetically will connect with.
Right, right. That's a really good point, because there's a lot of hypnosis practitioners who will put recordings, I do it myself, of a client's session that they get approval to put up, and people may or may not resonate with the material that comes out of that client when they're talking to the higher self about whatever the question is, because it challenges them. And when I know for myself, I'm not sure if you get this in hypnosis, but when I have a client, I keep asking a lot of underlying questions to go deeper than the solid form,
Oh
deeper
yeah.
than what I'm seeing. I go into like the energy level. I go into like the nature of where the energy comes from, just deeper levels. And what I eventually always get consistently from the higher self in all of my clients, which is the same being in all of my clients. I've been doing this since 2012, and you've been doing it longer, but is that there are multiple parallel realities. There are multiple dimensions. And it always says to me, Vaughn, you are getting the clients that are going to the reality you exist in. So
Correct.
you're not going to get the doomsday type of dire outcomes, because that frequency in that reality has no match to you. You don't
Right.
resonate with it. So you will never experience that. And the people that come to you are going to the same outcome that you're going to. That's why they're attracted
Correct.
to you. That's why you keep getting star seeds and alien incarnates and ancient old souls, because they're here to build the fifth dimension that we're already in. That's what I get. And I talk to other hypnotists who go, I never get that kind of fun stuff. All I get is the marriage problems, because I'm going through marriage problems. And so you're going to get a mirror of what you're working on. So what kind of
Exactly.
clients do you get?
I get high level beings. I get, they're incredible. When I go to the higher self, they are and I hesitate to say it because they're the creators of big things.
Right. The game makers,
And,
the creators, yeah.
yeah, they're not just, I mean, there are watchers. They're just the library, kind of like the Library of Congress, but you know, the library where everything is stored.
Yeah, the librarians, yeah.
The Akashic records, yeah.
Do you get life planners?
No, no, I don't get
the life planners that work in the library to help people plan their incarnations. Have you gotten
no,
any of those?
nope. I've also gotten, and this is very unusual, I think. Now don't forget, the people that I am in contact with a lot are also mediums. They're connected to begin with, to a certain degree. They're psychics. They're okay. So
Right.
a few of them have come to me after a QHHT session and said, my SC or higher self wants to talk with you. And so then we had, and it's very quick that we then went into it, and I was being tutored from upstairs. And like, it was like, oh my God. It was amazing. Yeah. It was absolutely amazing. So anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I've gotten, yeah. It gets interesting when you get into the Dolores Cannon work. Yeah. You never know what you're going to.
You have no idea, because then it's beyond the galaxies, and it just keeps going bigger and bigger and more and more. And we are told, I'm sure you are also, that there are so many universes, and there's the source is, there's sources beyond the source, and basic yeah.
It gets very convoluted.
Yes.
It's a convoluted universe, like Dolores says. And
yes.
Really, honestly, we are basically, it's choose your own adventure. So if somebody's version of reality does not jive with you, then that's not your lesson to learn. Don't go down that rabbit hole.
No.
If somebody else's jives with you more, then focus on that and manifest more of that good stuff. So, and that's really what the higher self says to me over and over and over again, because, and you know, and that's perfectly fine. So yeah, that's very, very good. That is something that a lot of people have confusion of, is I don't know who to believe, because this hypnosis person gets this outcome, and this hypnosis person gets this outcome, and this channeler gets this outcome, and this medium gets this outcome, and the outcome,
they're all different.
They're all different.
That's what resonates.
Yeah, because you are the creator of your own reality. So what you focus on and put your energy on, you will create and manifest. So if you continue to focus on dire outcomes, guess what? You are going to eventually have that car accident.
Yes.
And that's a simple way of understanding parallel realities, and that's what comes through all of my sessions. So don't take one person's dire outcome as the tell-all that I must do X, Y, and Z in order to avoid that, because that might not be your future reality.
No, we are creators ourselves of our own realities. Exactly. And we get to choose every day what our day is going to be like, and how we are going to create it, and how we are going to, what our attitude is going to be about it.
Right, right. Can you tell people about your live Facebook meditations and your weekly spiritualist services? And also, like, what congregations are you a guest minister for where in New Hampshire where people can go and attend?
Okay, well, first of all, weekly guided meditation is from 6:30 to 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Okay, and it is on the Elaine San Soucie Facebook page, personal Facebook page, and just try it. It's recorded afterward, so if you can't make it on time, that's okay. And every week it's different, and I never know what's happening. It's downloaded. I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth. And so it's quite interesting. At least I think so, just kind of watching it. And then the weekly modified service is on Life Path Fellowship page. I guess there's the in front of it for Facebook. So the Life Path Fellowship, okay, page. And that's at 1 o'clock every Sunday. And that's, again, Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And that a spiritualist service basically is 3 parts. Interspersed with song, not now, that's why it's modified, and other things. But it's healing, which is the most important part, which now, because it's modified, I do as either a slight guided meditation, or I use crystal bowls. Okay? And so that's the first part. The second part is a talk. I don't call it a sermon because I'm not telling anybody what to do. All right? So for me, it's a talk. And the third part is mediumship. And mediumship is message work. And I usually call it message work because sometimes what comes through is not from a deceased loved one. Sometimes what comes through is guidance from my guide to the other person's guide who is in the room wearing a mask, socially distanced. There are not too many of us. And so I allow those messages to be given online so that the people online can hear the messages. And sometimes the messages will ring a bell. And so sometimes it's okay. So anyway, that's those 3 parts. You asked what different places I do my services. Okay, so it's Life Path Fellowship. Right now everything is kind of closed, but I'm going to be doing in Keene, New Hampshire, Cycles of Spirit on the first Monday in November at 6:30 Eastern. Then I'm going to the others are closed right now. 1, 2, 3, 4 others are closed because I've kept Life Path Fellowship open, or it was closed for 2 months, but it's now open, but it's small. Very small.
Right. Well,
anyway,
yeah, there's a lot of really good material, and again, it's just fantastic to catch up with you, Elaine. People in New Hampshire and the surrounding areas are very fortunate to have you. And I kind of have a feeling you're going to get hit up for a lot of weddings and naming ceremonies in the area because, just as an option. So, but everyone can find Elaine's offerings at facebook.com/The Life Path Fellowship. And Elaine, thank you again for a wonderful interview. Thank you kindly to everyone else for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.